Hello, everyone on the internet. Thanks for tuning in.
And welcome to another episode with me, Master Today, with my Tokubo on the outside of Cyberman!
Final vent.
And how many times I say he's still going to do it, so I'll just say anyways that how boring that was of the build up to the final attack of what we're going to be talking today, that being Kamen Rider Ryuki.
Yay.
Right. And I emphasize the boredom on his tone of voice. Enthusiasm!
No, I actually really liked Ryuki.
Alright, well, leading with that, then you can talk about the build-ups.
Yay. I mean, this is it. I must have been several years into watching Kamen Rider by this point, by the time I actually got round to watching Ryuki. So even though I watched it several years after broadcast, I just heard so much hype about this series. I knew bits about it. I'd seen the screenshots. I mean, I think I watched it just a year or two after Dragon Knight, the American adaptation, was put out. So I did have a good sort of
feel.
Basic. I had a bit of knowledge about it already. I knew its reputation. Watched it, and to sort of jump to the end of this episode already, I'm literally going to say it was an amazing series.
Right.
And it lived up to the hype.
In my case, I was going to say in my case, I didn't really go in with any build-up, though I did get a general... No, I've got to remember now. If it was through people's typing in that they compared it to a Battle Royale theme style, which we will get onto when we get to the story as a whole. But that is probably... I almost went in with no knowledge or whatsoever, so... That is me on that one, really, and it was thoroughly enjoyable.
I mean, you say you had no knowledge. I mean, I must have picked up so many bits, like, prior to watching episode 1, that, this guy was a rookie rider. He had, like, a good backdrop, which ended up being the news, the Gazette room, just the fact that there were loads of riders. Again, so many bits I picked up prior to watching it, but that's just simply because of its hype, because of its reputation. But moving on to watching the first few episodes, I think I was just totally blown away. It's really weird because, he was like that klutz, especially his personality was so klutzy, and I'm trying to remember his name now, Ryuki's name, but anyway. And then just the sort of mystery around, the night guy, and the girl, the female supporting role. The sister, I think she was the sister. Of Obi. Yeah. So, I knew that this was going to go somewhere deep and dark just from the first few episodes. I love that dark feel.
Well, first episode's thoughts, or first few,
Yeah, those are the first few, go on.
I mean, in my case, wasn't it during the opening scenes, you see a fight between Scissor and Comedian, and...
Are you talking about the OP, or, like, in the episodes?
In the episodes, you see a fight, don't you, with Scissor?
No, Comedian doesn't appear for quite a while, but... I'm not sure if it's Kamen Rider Scissor or Incisor, the brown one, the
crab one, yeah, Scissors.
Like he was very in both Ryuki and Dragon Knight. He appears really early on, and he kind of disappears after that quite quickly.
No, I thought there was like a fight that is kind of like a build-up or something in the mirror world. That's why I was just like. I keep seeing...
Oh, you're talking like a sort of Easter egg. I don't know.
Anyway, but, yeah, so... In short, first few episodes, for me, I think it was the fights, the choreography that was more memorable and such, as opposed to the story. But as a whole concept, that's more memorable for me, though. But that's just...
The story was very interesting. I'll talk about the story a little later. Let's talk about, bearing in mind, Ryuki has a massive cast.
Yeah, right. what I was going to
Out of
mention,
those we remember,
right?
what can we say about the cast? You go.
What I was going to say on the rider side, if I'm not mistaken, unless Gaim exceeds it at the time, isn't it Ryuki?
It held
Ryuki,
that record for a
yeah,
while.
Ryuki held the most amount of riders in one show ever. Plus, they also did the first female rider.
Bearing in mind, this is like Heisei series number 3. So that, bearing in mind, there was no female riders in Showa as far as I'm aware.
Yep.
Well, actually, I think there was one. There was like Ladybug Girl or some random.
Oh, yeah.
But
For
proper outright, right? Heisei rider. This is like 3rd series in. You get your first female.
it's
So,
very, very ambitious and also very
But I think,
hats off.
I think we're already talking. Yeah, even though we haven't even started talking about the main character yet, we're talking about the female rider for and again, really, we're supposed to. We're analysing Ryuki. She was only a movie exclusive
But
character.
still,
But I'll be genuinely honest. They did a better job of that female rider in Dragon Knight, and that's just flat out. And that's probably one of the only positives comparing Ryukin to Dragon Knight, which I'll do right at the end.
What I was going to say,
right.
right. This is what okay, as a whole. So we're talking about the actual characters or such. How many remember? So other than Ryuki Knight, you got Scissors and the Green Lawyer guy. Then you've got the Rhino, the Cobra, a Tiger. You've got. Hang on.
It's fair enough listing them.
Chameleon. Hang on 1 second. I'll get there. And then you've got the. I'm missing. Oh yeah, Phoenix. You've also got Swan, and you've got
Odin.
No, that's the Phoenix. Phoenix, yeah. And then.
But again, rather than listen to them, what do we think of from the character? Because again, I can't even remember who the Rhino guy was in Ryuki.
See, right, the Rhino guy was like some street punk kind of guy, very gun-ho thing. But for me, I felt like, oh wait.
I mean, because my favourite characters would have to be Ryuki himself and the lawyer guy. I think he was called, right, oh my god, I'm just going to mix up Ryuki and Dragon Knight names now, but the first green guy, who was the 3rd rider introduced, or was he the 4th? Well, apart from Incisor, or Scissors.
That was it. The green guy was a bison of a...
Yeah. So I like the bison character. He was the lawyer. He had a very very deep story, it was all about the fact that he was dying. He was the one that was dying, wasn't it? Or was it someone he knew? Yeah, it was him that was dying. And, he was very he was true to being the rider. He was he was in that competition to fight. He was there to annihilate the other riders.
Well,
he made a lot more sense.
Just to tie him with, for the viewers, to tie him with the story as well, to go with the characters as well. The purpose of the story is literally battle royale, where
one survivor gets a wish.
Correct. Any wish that they want. So you have about a dozen riders, different characters, all of which are first timers, I think, and literally they
all had a different perspective to the battle.
Character, and different style of wish they want.
To being the protagonist of the series. He was very like, oh, why do we have to fight? Why do we have to fight? And I did like him, because he had like a sort of naivety about him. That's why I liked Ryuki.
I mean, I'll tell you who I love.
As a person, and then as a rider, he was just very unorthodox. That's what I really liked about him. I mean, when it comes to the Bat guy, Knight, I think it was called, he was very... he was sort of very polished. He was very sort of, I know what I'm doing, and I'm just going along with it. But then everyone else suspected him as well.
I'll tell you who I love. The Cobra.
He was a nutcase, wasn't he?
this is basically a sociopath just that has
He
been
was an
released from prison.
ex-convict.
What?
Yeah,
He
he's
was.
an ex-con. Well, he was a con. He was a convict.
Yeah, he was a con.
He escaped prison with the rider deck.
Yeah, yeah. And I just think he adds that extra dimension of intense to that, and I loved it. I loved it to bits, really. Any other memorable characters for me would be the lawyer, as you mentioned, who's dying of something or other. Knight, Ryuki, Odin, they're memorable.
Odin was. I love the whole mirror jumping thing and just sort of being the organizer of the competition, and just the way he kept appearing and he was like Tatakai, and it's just insane. I mean, like in terms of supporting roles, you had the main female, who was, I think, sister of Odin. She was very.
Wait, hang on a minute, hang on 2 seconds. I thought the sister of Odin was unwell, wasn't she? Unless I'm.
I don't know. I think we're mixing up all the different Kamen Rider series. Because that sounds like crap. Never mind. No, because the main female supporting role, the girl with short hair, you see her in the intro. I'm pretty sure she was related to Odin in some way. And then you had the other support. She was a bit sort of, she was very like wanting to fight and stuff, and they're always dragging to the mirror dimension. But then you have the supporting cast in the Gazette room.
Mm-hmm.
They were all very sort of in your face, so kind of quite a lively bunch. And one of them actually goes on to be the girl for Smart Brain and Fires.
Mm.
Yeah, so you got her in there. But other supporting characters, I don't know. Did Ryuki actually have anyone like apart from in the Gazette room? Because before I start mixing it up with Kamen Rider Gaim, where he has his sister, I don't think Ryuki had anyone like that.
I mean, the thing is when you mention about the Gazette room and such, I'm sorry, but I barely remember anything because of the.
Oh, I thought it was quite focal because it shows him as a sort of
human.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I was looking more on the more battle royale side of things than.
Well, obviously that I think it depends what an individual is looking for in any given series. Whereas
I just felt it was more prominent.
Made Kamen Rider Ryuki a more rounded series.
True, but I just
felt
it was
to something like Blade, which it had its sort of like scenes in the cabin and stuff, but focused more on the action. Whereas this one had a nice balance of both.
Didn't it also have a calf as well that when Ryuki and Knight would tend to go to or something?
Ooh, I don't know. There was a lot of sets in this series as well. Especially that ghost house thing. We'll talk about that towards the end. Alright, I think we've covered the cast. Were there any standout villains? Because they're all mirror monsters at the end of the day.
What besides Cobra and Odin?
And that's the thing as well. Like you say villain, like you could say villains for any series, but for Ryuki, it was a case of you had your random monster of the week mirror monsters, which are just randomness. But the real villains were people like Cobra and...
No, well, actually, correction. No, hang on a minute. Literally, the villains were everyone else. This was Battle Royale. Everyone was against each other.
But they did fight monsters. There's no doubt about this. They did fight monsters as well as each other.
Hmm.
Because there were actually henchmen. I think they looked like ants or something.
I don't remember that. Honestly, I don't.
No. What do we think of? Let's see. Because again, it was quite generic, I guess. But all the looks was mainly, it was all about the riders fighting each other, I guess.
I mean,
what did you make of the fact that they had to pick 13 random animals? I mean, yeah, you tried listing them earlier. You know, you had a dragon, you had a bat, you had a bison, you had a
hang on.
tiger.
Okay. If I
Like,
had to, okay,
yeah,
one.
five, but yeah,
If I had
what
to,
did you think?
I actually liked it. And this is leading in with the outfits as well. I loved the outfits, how they tied in with the said animals of choice and what powers each has. That it makes sense. It actually makes sense that each animal had, oh sorry, each suit, each character for that said animal has some kind of resemblance to it, and the suit as well matches to that character. If I had any qualms about the animals to suits or vice versa, is Ryuki. I did not give a crap for the helmet.
Oh well, you see, when I first saw that, it just kind of looked like a grill,
Yes.
like it just looked like two Red Bulls under a grill. I'm like, it's sort of like you can't. I mean, bear in mind, I'd already seen however many Rider series, but it's almost like they were trying to detract away from the bug look that is a typical Kamen Rider. Bearing in mind, Kuga and Agito had that bug look fairly there still. It's
Out
almost
there.
like they were trying to detract, they were trying to
Mm.
come away from it, but they still wanted to hold on to it at least a little bit. So,
See, this is
I
my
mean, the
thing.
bright red spandex under the armor was a bit ballsy, in my opinion.
But it worked though. It made it unique.
It made it unique. I don't mean, I preferred the look of Knight.
Agreed. No, Knight was
Uh,
good. Knight was
Actually, I
good.
preferred the look of everyone else, really. I mean, Ryuki looks alright. I mean, bearing in mind you've had some real sort of floozy of riders, like
Do you know?
Hibiki, for example.
Here's the thing. Do you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of like because of that very vibrant red. It reminded me of a Rookie Red Ranger kind of
I
thing.
think it was a salmon colour. No, I disagree. It wasn't red at all. It was like salmon.
My point is, it felt like a very Red Ranger like style, like very dominant, very.
No, but this is kind of thing though. You say that, but like, looking at it, it felt a bit weird. I mean, he had like a sort of, really round top head. But when you watch the show, you don't get that feeling at all. Because, like, one thing that Ryuki and Dragon Knight both did is they had the same first battle with Knight and Ryuki, where, it's quite iconic where you just see Ryuki or Dragon Knight, whichever one you're watching. He charges at the monster, slashes his sword, and it breaks. So you kind of get the sense that he's an idiot. I mean, they did a better job in Ryuki because they established him as an idiot in his everyday life, whereas in Dragon Knight he was a rebel, and then he fights like an idiot. They
Yeah.
really had a tough job doing that in Dragon Knight.
What I was going to
But
say was just continuing on with the suit, though. Forgive me. Is that like you mentioned that the red was very vibrant, which I agree. But then all the other outfits, like for instance, Rhino's suit was very grey, like cement grey kind of
I
thing, which I loved. I
think
loved the
they did a
tiger.
really good job of like contrasting, right?
Agreed.
Because you did have Knight who was dark, you did have the Rhino that was dark, you did have the Tiger that was still dark.
Why? No,
But then
tiger.
but then you
Tiger.
got the dragon.
No.
But then you got the dragon.
Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. But then you had tiger, which was like a snow tiger, so it's almost a pure white with dark blue streaks. So it was a nice cut, as well as you have bison and chameleon, which are green, and then you have Odin, which is
That's what I'm
gold.
saying. There was
It's
contrast. You
very
had your
nice.
dark coloured riders, then your very vibrant coloured riders. But again, where they had so many riders, they had that liberty to. They could take that liberty.
Hmm. I mean, admittedly, it could have gone so much worse, but they took so much time in the suits that I love each one. That each one has its own characters to it, and for me,
Absolutely.
yeah. I mean, even the the Cobra one? It had a. You can just tell it's badass. You can just tell it's gonna do something evil.
Lol.
Yeah.
What I mean, what do we think? I mean, what were there any vehicles really? Because they had
Yes.
like the sort of big,
Okay.
you know, sort of like the roof, the bike with the roof to
Basically,
go across dimension.
okay, so what Flavor Man is referring to is when they henshin in the real world and to go into the mirror worlds, they require a means of transportation. And that means of transportation is something that's pretty much a egg on its side, effectively, like a time capsule that you just ride into the mirror world. That said, also, Knight and Ryuki do get their bikes during the upgrade form as well.
Survivor mode, I think it was called.
Yes, Survivor.
Survival.
Or Survival, yes. And basically, their animals convert themselves into bikes. So, Dragon for Ryuki, Bat for Knight.
It also upgraded their suits a little bit, which made it look a bit more pizzazz, but you know, it's just kind of typical, really. Especially where Sentai, you know, didn't take that 10, 12-year gap, and you know they had come leaps and bounds in doing the upgrade form. Because bearing in mind, Ryuki would have been the same year as I'm thinking Abaranger, which, you know, they just, you know, their pattern would come up as a sort of upgrade in itself. So, you know, they kind of had some catching up to do in terms of
I mean, the thing
upgrades.
is with Ryuki though, the upgrades for Ryuki alone, wasn't it, if I remember correctly, it was pretty much like Dragon Ranger's gold chest.
Meh. But one thing we have also forgotten, and it's one of the other riders, is you had a Dark Ryuki form.
Yes. Ryuga.
Yeah,
I loved the look of Ryuga. I thought instantly it's like the opposite to
I think that
Ryuki.
was the idea.
Yeah. But I mean,
It looks badass.
it did. It was the shadow of Ryuki. I loved it. I loved the look. And even the dragon as well was this very faded black look, and I loved it. It's like Dark Keeper basically. It's the opposite, and I love that.
I guess that's where Dark Keeper might have got it from.
True.
But okay, what about, you know, because what about this? I mean, they had weapons. They each had a weapon, and then they also had, like, you know, whatever animal they were representing. They also used that animal in battle, made sometimes part of the Hisatsu attack.
Right. So
what do
okay. I'll quickly run through. So with the cards, the deck of cards that they have, you have your henshin cards. You then have your
weapon card,
your what?
like sword vent,
Okay. You get
a weapon vent.
you get a weapon vent. Majority is sword. You then get a defense vent of some description. Like, for instance, let's use Ryuki as an example. You get your henshin card. No, lies. You don't get a henshin card. You just use your belt as a henshin, or buckle as a henshin. My bad. You get your sword vent, shield vent, advent, which means it's your animal as a finisher. Final vent is
The Hisatsu.
Hitsatsu attack. That is it. I think the main ones, anyway. What's more?
like,
Hang on a minute. Each rider has a different way of scanning the cards as well. Like, for instance, Ryuki has his gauntlet, effectively.
I think most of them had the gauntlet,
No.
but a few of them had a different. Like, I know Cobra had the star.
Yeah.
The card that was the
And
star.
then Knight has his sword to.
He does it in the sword itself.
He does it in the sword itself, yeah. I think Bison he puts it in his gun.
I was thinking gun, but I'm thinking that might be wrong.
I know Odin uses his staff. I know that like you mentioned, Cobra does his staff. I think. You sure?
I think most of them. Yeah, Cobra had his staff. It was a snake staff.
All right. But generally speaking, they would have.
It would used to be in the weapon.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, because weapon-wise, I'm pretty sure Rhino didn't have a weapon.
He had
and
a
then
rhino
in size,
head.
Yeah, because it was on his head, innit? But you know, you had Incisor who had his claws, which I
Scissors.
think,
Scissors.
well, technically, yeah, scissors claws, whatever.
Crab's claws.
Crab claws. And then I think the tiger had like boxing glove sort of thing. Yeah, like claw. Yeah, like big hands. Rhino was the head. Cobra was the staff. But then, like when they were using their animals and they defeated other riders, they would use their riders' animals.
Right, with that, this is interesting because the Cobra, the the convict, he defeated two riders and took their cards and animals off them. What's
And
more,
then
he
amalgamated.
he amalgamated them to make that into some kind of a amalgamated dragon thing, which I thought was so. He defeated the rhino, and he
Chameleon, and he had his own cobra as well.
he had his own cobra, fused them together, and made this mishmash of a dragon, which actually worked. Believe
It was
or not,
insane.
it was
But
insane.
one thing I still find funny though is how the graphics are so dated on that. I mean, because even before he did that, you had like the dragon and cobra fighting, and it was so PS2 CGI.
Agreed. Linux.
Because you know you had you know like you mainly saw the dragon sort of whirling around, the bat not so much though. I think. And then the bison was pretty much the attachment onto his shoulders, and he just became a bazooka thing. And again, Swan, you don't really, you know, she was only in the movie. And then just Phoenix, he was just like everywhere, wasn't he?
One thing that I will say, which I found interesting, was there's a flip side to having your soul contracted to the animals, effectively, in that they require either feasting upon your soul or your life force or someone else's. And the fact that the con guy, the prisoner, he took 3, so they were all hungry, they were all feasting, and at times that was a very good twist, in that they at times would actually eat upon him. He would let them eat upon him, and I was like,
that's dark, man.
I was like, what the? But it was dark, as that twist was so. I didn't see it coming, really, and so even still, they were all going to die regardless. They were all tethered to, effectively, an hourglass, if you will, and it was a matter of time, and I just loved that whole concept. But other than that, if we're done with the suits and all, and mechs and weapons and such,
what did we think? Well, I guess what did we think of the henshin device?
simple, loved
because it was a belt.
No.
Yeah, it was a belt and
Okay,
buckle belt.
it is a thing.
Belt. It spun around,
Right.
and it looked
Just
nice,
to
and
fin. Okay,
lighting
getting
and
on.
then they went through the mirror.
Getting onto this belt, but just a tiny. I don't know if you wanted to mention this, but about the plugs on the suits, that all of them had pretty much like little what do you call it? Round holes, if you will, on their suits. You haven't noticed that?
I don't think so.
Basically, all the riders have almost about 6 to 8 silver, not holes, but like how would you describe it? Like imagine that button, like you would pin something with a button on, right? But imagine that, but bigger. It is noticeable, but there is a reason to it. Like, for instance, you can attach your shield upon your arm, for instance, or something on your back.
I don't remember this.
basically, the reason I say that is because, one, I think you've mentioned that there's some noticeable hole plugs, as you mentioned once, on them, and that they would attach themselves to the seat, or the fact that they can attach their weapons on the back. And the reason I say about attaching their weapons on is because I have the SH Figuart Drag Rector Special back at home, and you can actually attach said weapons or whatever.
Oh.
You know, so that's why I found it interesting. Leading on to the belt as well, I found it very simplistic, and I loved it in that it's literally, it's not in your face, it's not too small,
Subtle.
it's very, very. I mean, the color's subtle.
It looks good as well, but I don't think.
It's sleek.
To be honest, in an age of Neo Heisei, that wouldn't cut it again. Yeah, that's why they keep going vibrant.
See, I think in the Neo Heisei, they need something as simplistic as that, and from Ryuki, or even from Double, like something as.
Are you joking? Our last 3 Henshin devices were, let's see, because even Gaim had his like fruit slicing belt with the soda stream and whatever else, and then you had Drive with like, his flashy arm. He had an arm gauntlet as well.
See, Drive works. I love Drive.
No, but again, at the end of the day, it was flashy, but I liked it.
But it's
so,
unique
it had
as
all
well.
the lights and stuff.
But the thing is,
and then you got Ghost, where it's like that is totally OTT. It's a massive chunky thing. But again, coming to Ryuki, it's nice, it's simple. You got like some
it's
basic
sleek as
CGI.
well.
It's sleek, but again, it just wouldn't cut it in today's Neo Heisei.
I disagree because rephrase. It might not cut it in our time in the real world now, but I think for the show it worked. It made sense that it's a nice sleek belt because you're going to be going into combat, you're going to be playing Battle Royale for the rest of your life or whatever during that year, and I loved it. I think it worked.
Oh, okay. Alright, so leading on, what episodes stuck out for you in Kamen Rider?
You know, besides some of the fight sequences, maybe when they get the survival modes, which honestly, by the way, survival is like a...
We've already covered
yeah, nothing special really. Honestly, no particular...
Well, let's see. Episodes that stuck out for me, I'd say, like, especially the earlier... and I'd say for me personally, bearing in mind I've also seen Dragon Knight, when I watched Dragon Knight, it would reinforce my memory of Ryuki episodes. So, like, seeing, like, the early exchanges with Ryuki and Knight, they kind of redid that with Dragon Knight and whatever the hell they called, I can't even remember. Whatever they called the bat guy.
No.
I can't remember. No, I can't remember what they called him in Dragon Knight.
Oh,
because you had Dragon Knight, and then you had whatever the hell the black one was, the bat one. Never mind. Anyway, so that reinforced my memory of that. And then sort of, especially the fight with Scissors or Incisor, that stuck out. And then, trying to stick to Ryuki, sort of the episodes of the convict getting out, sort of getting the power get to his head. And then, like, I think this is more about the set, but that house full of mirrors and just the history of the girl with Odin. Those episodes were, they were very vivid.
Now that you mention it, wasn't the animals
her drawings?
Yes.
Her drawings.
Yes. Odin's sister drew those, and all the concept and all the cards were the origin from. That was brilliant.
Again, these are very vivid images that stuck out for me, as well as, again, I'm just trying to reel it off. I think, because, you're the one that keeps mentioning Battle Royale, but and I'm coming to the film now, it was basically this is, where I've not seen Kugo
You did say alternate ending, right?
It was an alternative ending, yeah.
So, hang on, wait. So
and then they
one
did,
second.
what,
Night.
hold on.
Wait, okay.
They did Ryuki's film as an alternative ending, and they did it in a style of battle royale. So it was like so and so's dead, so and so dead. Yeah, every time someone died, they're dead, and it just comes up on the screen. It's insane.
Like Hunger Games.
I haven't seen Hunger Games. So much for reviewing films, huh? Anyway, so I'm thinking if Ryuki had a special, they might have done a Hyper Battle video with Ryuga. I'm not sure. Anyway, and this is obviously pre-X, crossover film, so they did do a crossover film. LOL. But Ryuki does get referenced enough in other stuff like Decade, etc., which I've not seen yet. Anyway, I will watch that.
Saying that, now that you mention it, Decade did do
I think I did see the Ryuki upgrade.
No. I'm not talking about that. Decade made a wait, rephrase. In the Ryuki episode of Decade, they had a Decade exclusive Ryuki style character.
Oh, I think you mentioned that to me before,
which was based off a Blue Shark.
I think I remember you mentioning this before.
Belt was the same, everything was the same, just the whole outfit was original.
Oh.
And it was brilliant. It was genius. It was it showed. It basically had that 21st century twist, and like it still had the origin of Ryuki, but just like there was more vibrancy, if you will. But it still had the grip of the Cobra guy, for instance, or it just had the henge. It was very. It was nice that they did it. It really, really was good that they did it, and hats off that I think that they pulled that one off, honestly. And it deserves to be on the shelf of Ryuki as well, though, by all means, because of how well they did it.
So again, I think it must have been just that form and the movie version. Because I do remember seeing the Swan in because I think if anything, she wasn't even around for that long in the film, even though people rant on about how she was the movie exclusive, and even the fact that Ryuki had 13 writers and one of them was female. It's kind of a gimmick, really. Again, they did it so much better in Kiba, for example.
Agreed.
And especially Gaim, but again, that's several years down the line. What do we remember about the music of Ryuki?
Loved the opening.
That opening was an amazing sound. I used to be, because I was watching Ryuki while I was working in London, and I would just have the MP3 playing, even the instrumental as well. It's an amazing OP. It just got me really hype. In terms of BGM, though, I'll be honest, I don't really. There wasn't anything that stood out.
I don't remember it. That's the thing. I mean, honestly, I think Ryuki's opening is one of my top threes up there with Double and Faiz, maybe.
LOL. Ooh, you like the Faiz OP. Okay.
We'll see when we get to that. Anywho.
Okay, what do we think of the choreography of Ryuki?
See,
I
this.
will start.
No.
I want to say I love how varied it is.
Yes.
Because there's 13 riders, they all have a different style.
But not just that. I was going to add to it. I think that they fight like how they would fight as themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, what I mean by that is those.
Yeah, alright, yeah.
No, what I mean is they just got pulled off the streets. They get thrown into a battle royale.
That's the thing, though, because Ryuki was a bit of a wimp, whereas everyone else was literally game on.
Yeah, and that's why I loved it. I love the fact that.
But that's kind of the thing, though.
The thing is, hang on, correct? Isn't Knight a bit of a veteran, if I remember correctly?
I think so.
Yeah, because
He's been around longer, I think.
With the belt on anyway. So that's why I think you can tell that he has a bit of years under his belt of it, and no pun intended. And whereas with the convicts, he would just go all merciless and stuff, and he couldn't give a shit. So that's what
He showed unusual mercy for Ryuki, in my opinion.
because he's a wimp.
But in it.
Oh wait, yeah. But
no,
regardless,
but I think they saw something in him. They're like, oh, he's going to be the chosen one or some shit. But coming back to choreography, you had like Ryuki as the wimp, you had Knight as the badass, you had the green guy with, he didn't really do much because he's a lawyer, but he had gun, and then you just had the convict who was just like raw, and then you had the comedian who was very sort of subtle, and I think like the Rhino as well, he was a boxer or something, or a cage fighter or some shit. So, they really went all out with its choreography. 3 series into Heisei, it's insane.
Agreed. And
what do we think of the locations of Ryuki?
Right. See, I can vividly remember the newspaper place.
The Gazette room.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was there, but I liked the house, definitely. And then I'd say, this is again the thing, if I had just seen Ryuki on its own, it'd have been quite forgettable. But I think watching Dragon Knight, it really does reinforce, like when they fought in fields, when they fought in parks, when they fought in business buildings, it kind of adds dimension to it. So yeah, I kind of appreciate fight scenes more.
See, here's the thing. I think
with its locations, yeah. Go on.
I think with what was I going to say, location-wise, when they go into the mirror world, not only is everything reversed, all the props are reversed as well, which is really clever. That they literally, as though if it were in a mirror, so everything is reversed. But the problem is once they get there, everything becomes so glary, deliberately glary, and also everything is all like, you can hear this background, almost like not a BGM, but like a background noise of like twinkle kind of thing, as though if it's like a sparkle noise. And I just found it, at first it was okay, but then it goes on and on and on once you're in the mirror world, and I just found it so off-putting. And that, if I had any qualms, that'll be one qualm. And if they cut down on that, twinkly sounds, I would be a bit more, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
what do we think of the final episodes and ending of Ryuki?
Right. Here's the problem.
I can't remember how it ended.
Huh?
I can't remember how it ended. I vaguely remember the film's alternative ending.
Well, see, you kind of summed up as to who won then in the regular.
No, I should know this.
Honestly, I don't remember the ending. I was too focused on...
We're great at this.
I know.
Would you recommend Ryuki to a friend?
You lead with this one.
I would. I mean, it might mean that all the other car riders seem shit in comparison, but it's just pretty badass for you.
I think, for all the riders that there is in this alone, I think, as a first-timer, I think it's good. I think it's action-packed. I think it has a good story for whatever we remember out of it.
But that's kind of thing. I think that's why they chose this series for the American adaptation, because they're like, oh, this would be a good starter series.
I would think, ignoring you and your American versions, but I think this will be a good starter series for second timers, third timers. By all means, go for it. If you're a fan for it, go for it. Go.
What, not first timers?
Yes, first timers. Like I said,
I heard you say second, third.
No. But obviously, first timers. This. I think for first timers, this would be a unique series on a standalone show to go into.
Okay, even though you're saying you're trying to get away from the American version, I'm going to conclude this episode by talking about Dragon Knight. Okay, right. Well, I don't know. You kind of really hated on it. I mean, this. Don't forget, this series actually won a daytime Emmy for its stunt coordination. I saw the scenes that they were nominated for, and it was actually really good. I mean, because the one thing that they did for Dragon Knight is they actually used more bikes in this, so it actually made more sense being called a Kamen Rider. I mean, the characters were a tad two-dimensional, and then they tried to fit it in with the style of choreography that Ryuki had based on the characters that they had in Ryuki. So, bearing in mind, Kit Taylor, who was Dragon Knight, was supposed to play the klutz that was Ryuki. It kind of didn't fit well together. Whereas the character like Knight, the Bat guy, in Dragon Knight, he was basically the guy from the Mirror World. They called the Mirror World Ventura in Dragon Knight. He was a badass, and he was played by a guy called Mike Collins, who went on to star in Mortal Kombat Legacy. And he was he's an amazing martial artist.
I've seen Legacy. Who's he play as?
Oh fudge, Johnny Cage.
I've seen the trailer to that. I saw that.
Yeah.
That was good.
So so you got him in it, and then his wife is the one who's Kamen Rider Swan, Kamen Rider Swan. And again, she does actually get a much bigger role in this compared to the Ryuki counterpart. That did really well. I mean, you had support characters like two girls and a boy who are librarians, and they had some really weird ending to them. Because you had the girl who was kind of like a journalist, you had her friend who was just like your sort of diva-esque person, and then you had the nerd boy who then ends up joining the CIA or some shit. Anyway, but this is the thing about Dragon Knight though, they did do better with Monsters of the Week, because you had a bad guy who wasn't Odin, but because the way that Kamen Rider Dragon Knight worked is you had two versions of the same person. You had the original version, and then the Mirror World from Ventura person.
It almost sounds like you're saying Ryuki and Ryuga contrast.
But that's the thing, though, because in Dragon Knight, you had, because what it is, you had the animals who were originally chosen by people in Ventura. They were all killed off by this is a massive spoiler alert. They were then all killed off by the guy who was Dragon Knight. And then what the main villain tried to do is he took all 13 powers, tried to find their mirror version, the people on Earth, gave them those powers again, had them fight each other, so he could then conquer Earth.
Hang on a minute.
Complex.
One sec. So basically, in comparison, you've got in the Ryuki version, Odin has basically brought to life the drawings, 13 animal drawings from his sister's drawings, chosen 13 individuals, random individuals, with different backgrounds, different stories, and said, here you go, your life is tethered. Whereas in your case, it's completely flipped.
Right, I will, again, I'll be a bit more specific. Basically,
simplify it.
You basically had, in the Mirror World, you had 13 people who were chosen to train up to be a guardian of some sort, guardian of Ventura or some king or some shit. And then you had the baddie who comes along, gets the Dragon Knight guy to betray them all, kills them all, and then the bad guy gets all the powers for himself. He lets the Dragon Knight guy go, but then he tries to find those 13, the mirror versions of those 13 people on planet Earth, and he gives them all different bullshit as to why they should take on this Kamen Rider power. But the one guy who survived is the guy who plays Knight. So he's then trying to go around planet Earth saying, look, this guy's evil, don't do it. But then when Knight succeeds in telling Dragon Knight not to fight and stuff, he then brings back the mirror Ventura Dragon Knight, gives him Ryuga, which in Dragon Knight they call Onyx, and then the battle starts all over again. but then they all eventually realise, oh, this guy's evil, and then they kick his ass. And yeah, and that includes Odin, because Odin, I can't remember his name in Dragon Knight, but he was also like a guardian. But then where he preserved his body, he then sort of absorbed Odin's power. It's a bit weird, but they do that. They didn't do like what Power Rangers do, where they sort of add additional stuff. They didn't really do that. They just added more scenes for certain characters, like Incisor and Swan. Henshin devices are the same. Again, the acting was a bit wooden, but I kind of felt like with guys like Mike Collins and a few of the other martial artists, like I know they had the guy who played the tiger and another animal as two brothers. In the series they were called the Brothers Cho. They were really good as well. Like again, because there was a scene with Mike Collins and the two brothers. That was the Emmy Award-winning scene. So it was a really well choreographed series. I thought it was a really good original take. But again, things like that. And I was saying this during Toku Talk enough times. The acting was just so wooden.
Fair enough.
So I think that wraps up talking about Kamen Rider Ryuki / Dragon Knight.
No. Or ignoring Dragon Knight. So nothing to tap on? No. Okay, cool. So that's been that. As always, do like, comment, subscribe down below the thing as always, and also comment on Flavorman's new hairstyle thing. As always, I've been Master Rider Bushido. He's been my Tokubo from the other side of that being Flavorman. And as always, we'll catch you next time. And as always, it's always been a cam!
To the cam. See you next time.